I think we'll begin. By the time I finish my presentation, Dr. Hubert will also join us. So, welcome everyone. I'm Karishma, and once again, a happy Diwali to all of you. And today, I will be moderating this event. And before, excuse me, Violetta, could you? Sorry, there has been a slight error. Anyway, so to begin with, I would like to present to you a series of slides on the US Masters, which is the topic we are discussing today. And we also have two speakers with us who have, one of whom was an alumni from Duke Fuqua MIM program, and the other is from Cornell Tech. So Hubert is also here. I think. Um, so I will just begin my presentation. Hello. So yeah, today we are going to be discussing the US Masters. Um, Master study in the USA. First of all, the master study in USA is something that is highly sought after because for a number of reasons. Number one, there are world class universities where American institutions dominate the global rankings for universities. Out of the top 50, 24 are based in the US. Number two, international outlook. Like for example, America has always been called as the melting pot of the world. So it's by far the most popular destination for international students, and its institutions, some of which are very old, offer unparalleled breadth of education to choose from. Qualifications to choose from. And also, one thing that is a plus point for a master's in America is even though they are not cheap, there are plenty of funding opportunities for talented overseas students also. Now, if you look at the key details of the universities, there are 4,360 universities, out of which the oldest is Harvard University with 1636, which was established in 1636. There are I would say 9,84,898 international students in the US alone. And course length usually is for 2 years, and the average fee is $20,000 to $35,000. Academic year starts in September and ends in June. Now, what do you require for these? An appropriate undergraduate degree, which if you're going for a master's, it should be in a similar field to your master's, not necessarily in the same subject, but similar field. Full academic transcript. Graduate admission test is very important, the GMAT or the GRE. And then you need your academic and personal preferences. Uh, Personal statements. I don't see much of essays like mini essays and essays in American style, but it will still be there. Some masters will ask you for research statements. These are very specific to the programs, and it will not be asked for all. Language tests are important if you do not belong to an English if you do not have an English background prior. And the final thing is the interview. Now, the QS World University rankings, as you can see, Harvard is at number one, Stanford number two, and thus it goes. Um, Finally, our speakers today, Mansoor Niang is the co-founder of Astroroom, a 3D virtual tour software for real estate virtual viewing. Now, Mansoor has already informed me that he will be in Senegal. He is in Senegal at the moment, and he said that his video will not the Wi-Fi will might be very sketchy, so he will try and switch on his video, but we might have to just talk to him. So he's a master in management alumni from Duke Fuqua, class of 2013. Now, a little bit of the Duke Fuqua School of Business. The MMS, the Master of Management here is called the Master of Management Studies. The MMS are 1 year management programs, and students have two options to earn a Duke MMS program. One is the MMS Foundation of Business, and the other is the MMS Duke Kushan University. Now, MMS Foundation is a 10-month course with focuses on strategy, management, accounting, marketing, operations, and finance. The thing is, this course will be located completely in Durham. It will be completely in the US. But the MMS Duke Kunshan University will be in two different places. You will get a chance to study also in China. Not a chance. You will have to take up a dual kind of study. So yeah, I'm sorry. Finally, our second speaker today is Jeremy. He was our student last year, and he's a master's candidate in information science and health tech at Cornell. Cornell Tech actually. He holds a BSc in applied and engineering mathematics. Now he is at the Technion Cornell Institute, which actually is an academic partnership between Cornell University and the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. Now, Cornell Tech represents the next generation model for STEM education. So the studies here will also mirror what they want to portray. So the MS in Information Science and Health Tech is a 2-year program, and it is issued by Technion Israel Institute of Technology and Cornell University. We will talk more about this with Jeremy. Our final speaker, who will join me right from the beginning, is Dr. Hubert Silly. He's our founder and CEO, and he's a test prep expert and creator of MBA Events World Tour. He is also the creator of the Business School World Series, which we are in our fall edition 2020. So that was my presentation. So, Hubert, you are on mute. Could you unmute yourself?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. So, the first person I would like to talk to is Jeremy. Maybe we can. Mansour, you're here as well. So the camera works, Mansour. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. All
Yeah.
good.
So it works. Okay. So maybe where is Jeremy? I don't know where he is. So basically, Mansour, we're going to start with you.
Perfect.
Maybe I don't know what Jeremy is. And now because the camera works, so I want to take advantage that the camera works. So basically, Mansour, so can you tell us more about yourself, first of all, or could you tell us more about yourself when you decided to study at Duke? Okay, not now, but yeah.
Thank you, Karishma, for the presentation. So, as Karishma said, I attended the Duke MMS Masters in 2012 and 2013. Before that, I graduated from a Bachelor of Economics from HC Lausanne in Switzerland. So what happened is after my 3 years in Lausanne, I wanted to have a new experience in America, and decided that I would maybe look at potential masters in the US. But at that time, in the US, mostly you had MBAs and not masters. And they started like Cornell did and Duke to offer 1 year, 10 months or 1 year masters that are very similar to MBAs, but pre-experienced. So I decided to take a few months after my bachelor to study my GMAT exam, to pass my TOEFL, and decided to apply for several US masters and European masters. And in the end, I got the chance to be able to either attend a school in France called ESCP Europe or HSC Paris, and also had the chance to attend Duke. Why did I choose Duke? Because I believed at that time, and I can confirm that now that I passed it, that it is an exceptional environment to learn. Duke is recognized internationally. Even if it's not considered as an Ivy League, it's one of the 10 best schools in the US today. The faculty was recognized as one of the best in the world. And I mean, the environment of evolving today in the US was very appealing to me. So when I decided to attend and join them there, I quickly noticed that it was a very international environment. In my class, you had tens and tens of nationalities, anywhere from Europe, America, South America, and also a lot of Asians. And this is partly why Duke Fuqua decided to open a campus in Kushan, as you mentioned, Karishma. And so it was a very interesting program because we learned a lot. It was quite intensive because you had, let's say, 1 year and a half or 2 year program condensed into 10 months. It was very interesting to evolve in a very multicultural environment and to be able to learn in a more practical way than I did while I was in Europe, where the let's say the methodology of learning was more centered, was more theoretical. So I don't know if you have any specific questions on the path to go there or on the program itself. Do you have any questions, Hubert?
Um, so yes, so for one, I understand because I was not aware of that. So you got accepted both to European programs and to US programs, and you
Exactly.
favored a US program. Of course, it was a big thing. So can you tell me more about the difference between, for instance, HEC Lausanne, which is a very good business school in Europe, and their approach, the difference between their approach of business and business education, and that you had in the US?
Yes. So, I mean, the main difference, to be honest, was centered about the theoretical versus practical methodology of work. While in Switzerland, the methodology of work was more centered around learning theories behind economics, finance, or management. In the US, and most specifically at Duke, the school was more centered around group work and group cases where we would focus on studying big companies in various different industries in groups with groups that were quite multicultural. They have an algorithm that help them to constitute groups based on backgrounds, but not only cultural background, but also on the undergrad background. So if I give you an example, in my group, I had an history major from Duke University, so an American, but I also had an Indian comrade called Gayatri that studied finance. We also had a sports major focused on literature. So, I mean, it was a very cosmopolitan way of working where it was very important to share ideas, brainstorm, and it was really more centered about the practical side of it, and it was much less theoretical. Another very important point for me and difference was the infrastructure. Duke infrastructure was exceptional, and we had access to many different libraries, to many different sports infrastructure, which allowed me to diversify my day-to-day activities, but also to meet people from diverse backgrounds, not only from Fuqua, but from Duke University itself. A third big difference with Lausanne is the access to the alumni network.
Okay.
You have a very strong link with the alumni in at Duke, which is very similar to in other universities in the US. When you are part of the family, they really consider you as part of the family. And it's interesting because even if you just arrived at the university, 1 month later you start career fairs and start to find a job the end of the year, you can contact anyone in the world from Duke explaining that you're currently at Fuqua and that you would like to maybe join the company and you need more information and maybe even help to get into that company. And 19% of the time you get a positive answer from the alumni. So the alumni network is very, very strong in the US and much stronger than what you can find in Europe and especially in HEC Lausanne.
Okay. So if you don't mind, the idea is that we're going to switch from one participant to the other because we were supposed to have University of Notre Dame, and they contacted us this morning. I don't know. I found out this morning that they will not attend. So, Jeremy, So you're a bit younger than Mansour because you just finished your bachelor. So can you introduce yourself, Jeremy? By the way, thank you for the mailing. Huh? You know, you have a lot of fans, huh? Obviously. Okay. So your micro is mute, Jeremy. Can you unmute it? I don't know. You're on mute, Jeremy. I don't know how to do. Jeremy, can I unmute you? I don't know if I can unmute you.
No.
Maybe can you unmute if you manage the conference? Can you try? Yeah.
Uh,
Can you unmute Jeremy? So you're supposed to be an IT expert. Can you unmute him? I don't know how to do me. Jeremy?
um, no, nobody else can unmute him.
Yeah, you have to unmute
Unmute
yourself,
is
Jeremy.
first. Sometimes when you join the AirPods, there's a problem.
Yeah,
I faced that.
yeah. It's on the yes. I don't know with the AirPod.
Okay, I think
Yeah,
you can hear me now.
yeah. I can
Exactly.
hear you now. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay,
Jeremy, so can
sorry.
you introduce yourself? So
A little.
so you're American, huh? You're American.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So good.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so hello everybody. As Karishma already said, so I'm currently attending a master's degree in the US in Cornell University. It's the tech campus of Cornell, which opened 11 years ago in New York City. So it has a different location from the original campus. The master's degree I'm currently attending is pretty interesting because it's kind of a 3-in-1 or 2-in-1, since we have the dual aspect of pure technical data science and analytics part, as well as the business and entrepreneurship core fundamental of the program, since we have in this particular program the ability to build a product technology, and at the end a company from start to finish with different levels of studies. So what I'm currently doing right now is building a venture with people all the way from MBA background or LLM or even computer science, which is pretty interesting and which has no parallel with what we can usually have in Europe. When I started contacting Hubert last year, he offered me many different alternatives with Europe, especially with COVID-19 going on. And I believe that I'm happy I applied only to the US and got accepted to the US, because we have, as Mansour said earlier, this this huge advantage of first becoming a part of a real family and for life. So this is really interesting in order to, I mean, in comparison to what we can have in French universities, for instance, and also the fact that we have the possibility of, as I just mentioned, have multiple degrees in the same time. And this is something I didn't see when I was trying to apply also to French universities prior to going to the US.
Because that's the thing. So what has been your experience so far? Because you started, when did you join? Last August? When did you join exactly?
Yes, exactly. I started approximately 3 months ago.
Okay, yeah. So what has been your experience so far? Because I can see from behind that you're in France, huh?
Yes,
From the
yes.
wall behind, because it's
I
a typical Parisian flat, okay? From the window, from the roof, you can only be in Paris.
Exactly.
So tell me, what have you done this last month? How was it organized with the constraints of the COVID?
Yes. So actually, I just came to Paris today. I was in New York for the past 2-3 months. I just came for personal reasons, and I'm going back in for the spring semester, so starting in January. What we have there is called a hybrid model, which means that we have full access to amenities and full access to the campus. We can meet with TAs, we can meet with students. We have a lot of projects, group projects, because and things have changed due to COVID, because usually we were more into working alone on many courses. So this was really interesting, having to get access to the campus, having to meet with other students. It is organized as a 60-40%, 60% on Zoom and online, and 40% in person. I believe that for next semester it's going to be the same, since the situation is not evolving pretty good in New York now. And it is pretty interesting having to be located in the city rather than being located in Ithaca, which is usually the real campus for the normal campus for Cornell. Because, as I told you, I have this dual opportunity of having both the business and entrepreneurship side and the analytics side, and being to get access to financial institutions, venture capital, also all hospital and medical professionals is very interesting in New York, rather than being located in other remote parts in the US.
Okay. So tell me, so what is going to be the year like? Because of course it's a question that people have. So what is going to be the year like between now and June? Yeah.
Okay. So first, and I think I need to mention this because it's what I read recently. When Karishma presented all the master's degrees in the US, there are some things that are changing, and especially because of COVID. First is the fact that for some programs, GRE and GMAT are becoming optional for next year students, and perhaps in the other years to come. I don't know if you've heard also for undergrad degrees, there are many universities now that don't accept SAT scores anymore, which is something that is evolving. I think that for people who are actually trying to work in order to get accepted next year, it is a real plus having to have these tests, because it's a real differentiator, and Huber is a world expert in that, so I think he'll explain it to you better than me. And also the fact that if you have a background in a English-speaking university, you don't need to take TOEFL or IELTS exams. Now in the timeline from now until June, as I said, I believe that it depends on the states in the US. It's very weird in the US how it happens, because it's from state to state, and whether you have one president or the other doesn't change anything. What is really important is the governor. In New York, for instance, as I told you, I believe that everything is going to be hybrid, but it does change from one place to another. There are several other Ivy League schools, such as Harvard, who actually said that everything is going to be online from start to finish. I do have friends from France who got accepted there and who did their master's degree from Paris. But yeah, it totally depends. I don't know how it works in Duke right now. Mansour, I don't know if you have more information on that. But that's globally.
Yeah. Because you came back to Europe for like the next 2 months, basically.
Yes,
yeah?
exactly.
And you back, so there's a winter break, you have many things to do, Thanksgiving, etc. Then you have winter break, and you go back to the US, okay? Because of course you agree that it makes more sense, to completing your Harvard degree from Paris. Yeah, is a bit.
It makes
it's a bit sad. Yeah,
it's a bit sad. Exactly.
You lose a lot of the experience. Okay.
Exactly.
So basically, so now, so basically, yes, you studied in France because you're French American. So what difference you make between the teaching style in Europe from that? Is it you agree with Mansour? Do you have something else to add? Yeah?
Yes, I have to agree with Mansour. I think we have, especially for my background, because my background is in pure and applied mathematics, we do have a very theoretical approach, which is really interesting in some ways. And I think it's nice to have this as a bachelor degree, and then having the more applied side as a master's student or an MBA student in the US. So yes, globally, it's the fact that we are applying, in my particular case, we're applying deep science to real world problems. And we're trying to, either from the business or entrepreneurship side, or even the analytics part, we have this possibility of trying to gather that data and information and solve complex real-world problems. So this is pretty interesting, and also the fact that this is a joint university program. So it is, as Karishma said earlier, a joint university program between Cornell and the Technion in Israel, which is famous for technology um, and engineering in the Middle East. It is not mandatory, but I have the possibility also to go to Israel if I want to go to the campus, and having to have both perspective. And from what's going on right now, I think it's better to stay in the US because in Israel, everything is also online. So yes, globally, applied engineering is, I believe, something that is really strong in the US rather than in Europe. And also the fact that I get to be in a very dynamic city in New York, and having to be in touch with other university and people who have backgrounds from other universities in the US. And also other universities in all around the world, which makes the experience, I think, a bit better. I know that in France we do have a lot of international students, but it's way more limited than what we have in the US. So this is.
So, Jeremy, so tell me, have you finally applied to European programs or not? Finally, you say to go just for the US. I forgot. Yeah, I think you have
Yeah.
been accepted very fast to Cornell, and you stopped the admission process from there. Huh? If I
Exactly.
remember well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was supposed to build. I mean, I was building everything with you, Hubert, for European master's degree, and eventually I got accepted pretty quick in the US, and I was happy to have my experience there for the reasons I told.
By the way, that's something that I recommend. I don't know if you have a lot of binational students here. Okay. But of course, if you have a double nationality, unlike Jeremy, because you had never studied in the US before, you agree? So it's very interesting if you have a double nationality to study into two countries, because you can experience both. Yeah, it's important, huh? I guess. By the way, that's also something that you have noticed. We'll ask Mansour what it is, but it's true that you agree that Americans buy America. Huh? You agree? So it means that they will always consider an American degree more seriously than any other European degree. Is it something that you have felt already, or not yet? Have you been into admission rounds already? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is partly, I would say, almost pretty much true. It depends from one person to another, but it's exactly how we can consider the fact that European or French are oriented into their own country or continent. I think that US are very much first happy of what they have there, because there's a huge diversity, and as Karishma said earlier, the fact that they're out of the 50 or top 100 institutions worldwide, almost 50 or 60% of the universities comes from the US, which makes a huge difference in terms of staying rather than as being an American trying to find masters elsewhere. What they usually do is try to find all the options in the US and then have exchange programs in European universities or universities in Asia.
Yeah, it's true that I cannot hear you. Is it me? Oh, yeah. Can I hear you, Jeremy? So it's true that probably one of the big advantage of an American program versus a European program is that US universities are recognized worldwide. You see? So for instance, you have a webinar on top US universities. There we have a lot of Indians, a few Europeans, okay? And probably that's something that we see more and more, is that Europeans tend to stay in Europe now, and students from outside the US and Europe not included tend to want to study in the US because they see the big edge. Tell me, Mansour, having a degree from Duke, when you rejected the offer from UTC and ESCP, you didn't say to yourself, yes, but maybe if I want to come back in Europe, it would be a problem. The recognition is not the same. Their network is smaller. Have you thought about this, or you just considered the experience in the US?
Yes, so it's a very good point, and to be honest, I hesitated for long, because as you said, my plan was to come back to Europe at some point, and to give you a bit of more of context, I'm Senegalese, and I was born in Paris, but I grew up in Senegal, and my long-term objective has I've always been to come back to Africa. So I believe that at first, HSC, Paris, or ESCP would be best for me in terms of network. And those schools are very recognized in Europe and Africa. However, as you said just before, in the US, the schools are recognized internationally. And to be honest, it gave me another dimension. What really weighted in my decision was that I really needed to have to learn in a new way academically, and I believe that European students should consider more going into the US for this type of masters. Let me give you an example. I've been working now for 6 or 7 years in consulting, and I can see that the methodologies are quite different in the professional world between the European way and the American way. And I think that having the two academic backgrounds gave me the two perspectives and provided me a more homogeneous profile, being able today to work with everyone around the world. When I was working with Accenture, for example, we used to work a lot with Indians. For when you have big transformation projects, we tend to work a lot with Bangalore or Mumbai, and you could see that French students that did the best schools in Europe, but that mainly stayed in Europe, had a bit more issues to communicate and work with international people than people with the profile with a similar profile than I. We already had the habit to work with diverse cultures through our academic studies. And I think it's very important that really European students start considering having to see both sides to have a more complete profile and be able to work in an international setting.
And you didn't think of staying in the US because after a Duke, you could have stayed one more year. Okay, you didn't try to stay in the US, or did you come back for personal reasons, or
Yes,
it would
yes,
have been a great experience for you? Yeah?
yes. But what I did 2 years in the US, and of course, yes, as you said, I had the chance with the OPT to stay in the US and work there. However, for personal reasons, I decided to come back to Europe to be closer to my family. But also, I believe that it was more interesting for me to start my career in Europe because as I said, my real long-term goal was to come back to Africa, and I don't think that I could gain what I needed, the experience I needed while staying in the US. I couldn't have the same experience than in Europe. So it was the best choice for me to go back to Europe.
And how is US education perceived from Africa?
It's actually perceived as the best education you can get today. So if we look at the African continent, as you might know, you have parts that are very francophone. You have parts that are more Anglo-Saxon, and what you can get is that most students that come from Senegal or Ivory Coast that are French-speaking countries, they tend to go to Europe because I think of the language, because they don't have the language barrier, whereas people from Nigeria, Ghana, or maybe Ethiopia tend to go to the UK or the US. But the other very important point is that in France, for example, you can go to a good university and the cost of the university will be very small. Compared to the US, where a program could cost you between $20,000 to $50,000 a year. which is a huge barrier for the African continent for now. So unfortunately, these constraints diminish the potential of those African students to go to the US, even though I believe that they consider it as the best education in the world today.
Okay. Uh, Tell me about yourself. So being American as well, Jeremy. So studying at Cornell was a way for you to maybe start your life in the US. What was the rationale? What was the idea behind that? You to go back to the States, or what have you got in mind? Ah, can I hear you? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So actually, this is a long-term decision. I believe that going to the US in order to pursue a master's degree or an MBA degree is important if I want to stay afterwards in the US job market, because it's actually the way where, I mean, the easiest way for me to have networking access and um, easily job access rather than going back to Europe. I'll have a limited alumni and network resource. I think that I envision myself working there after conducting my degree, at least for 2, 3 years, and then, according to what I'm doing, either building my own company or working in a startup or a big company that is an international company where I could potentially move from the US to Europe or to any parts of the world is part of my plan. And I do believe that, as Mansour said, the US have this potential of connecting you throughout the world, which means that currently in Cornell, I have met people all around the world. Some of them coming from Japan, some of them coming from Korea, and everything. Which means that if I want to work in a foreign country, and if I want to go, let's say, to China or Japan after my studies, even though I don't speak the language, but if I want to go in a big company where offices, in which offices people usually tend to speak English, I will have this opportunity if I do connect and try to really reinforce my network. This is pretty interesting. Whereas usually people, when we're, working and studying in French or European universities, it depends, because I think in UK it's a bit different. But when you work in French universities, you usually end up having this huge access to the French job market and an option for the rest of the world, but more limited.
Okay. So now that's a question that comes. So basically, in terms of financing, so we have a lot of questions. You see, Jeremy and Mansour in self-financing. So I imagine that you got you found the financing from family and personal savings, I guess. So basically, what could you say about financing? Because of course, when you follow a professional program, it's more difficult to get financing than if you, for instance, follow a research program. So, what did people tell you around you? How do they manage in terms of financing? Because of course, it's a major hurdle for non-US citizen. Huh? Because as you know, if you have some support in the US, you can have something that we call a Stratford loan. So it means that you have a federal loan or a loan basically guaranteed by the US government, or you can have a loan that is backed up by a US resident. So Mansour, you mentioned that of course it's a major drawback in Africa, because people the access of US education is something, and we are mentioning of the tuition fees, but there's also life there. And as you know, life is in America is far from being cheap, especially if you're in New York. Huh? It would have been probably much cheaper in Ithaca. Huh? I've never been in Ithaca, but imagine that it cannot be compared. So how do people, when you are at Duke, how do people finance their program? Can you tell me?
So the first tool you can use is so the schools in general, they can grant you scholarships based on merit, and especially in big schools, big US schools like Duke, you have a lot of different scholarships emanating from a lot of different funds. And based on your personal history or based on your background, you can definitely find uh, scholarships that can cover 20 to 30% of the total tuition fees. Then the other option you have is, as you said, to have a backed loan, either loans guaranteed by institutions that have partnerships with the school, which is quite helpful, or you can find student loans. But I imagine student loans are a bit more complicated to get when you're an international student coming into the US. So I would say that the two major tools are the scholarships and the loans that are guaranteed by institutions in partnerships with the university.
Okay, and then you can also have, when you have a 2-year program, you can also have like a summer internship that is pretty well paid. Huh? Okay,
Yes.
and there's also the third thing that you can consider. Yeah, there's also a signing bonus. Huh? Probably, Jeremy, if you want to try BCG, Gamma, this type of companies, there would be a signing bonus of 20, 30,000 euros, something about you want to join the family business. Okay. So now there's a question regarding, you already mentioned it regarding the GMAT, etc., regarding GMAT, GRE. Of course, it's you see that all the students who are here, they're preparing the GMAT with us. So what is the situation now, for instance, at Duke regarding the GMAT? Do they say, for instance, we had a meeting yesterday with HEC, INSEAD, and ESSEC, and they say, look, you can take the home-based GMAT or home-based GRE, so we will ask for the GMAT this year. There's no way out, okay? What have you heard at Duke now? Is it the same policy? Are they changing their approach? Yeah.
So my understanding is that the GMAT or GRE is still required. They might have changed the policy in the last couple of months. I'm not sure about that, but my understanding last this summer, was that they still required the GMAT. However, because of everything that happened, as you said, they could give you arrangements to do the GMAT at home, or they could give you a bit more time during your application to be able to pass the GMAT, to be able to go around the COVID situation. But my understanding was those exams are very important for the school to evaluate the candidates, and that it's still required to enter the MMS program.
Jeremy, yeah, you seem to say the contrary regarding Duke, where now they are going to waive the GMAT, comparing the situation with that with the SAT. So, what is Cornell's policy now? I know that you entered Cornell without the GMAT yourself. Huh? You didn't have to. Did you have to take the GMAT? No.
I took the GRE
GRE.
actually.
Okay. So,
Uh,
what is Cornell's policy now? They change their policy, or is it like HEC yesterday that said no, we don't change our policy. Now there's flexibility with the home-based GMAT. There's no way out. What is can
so
you?
there's Okay, so it really depends on the program. It depends on both the program and the school. So either from Cornell or other Ivy Leagues or other engineering universities in the US. Um, for some programs, they say that due to the situation right now, they were to, people could waive the right to take the GRE and the GMAT. But when you really look deeply into it, it looks like it's a bad idea. I think it's the only way for students to really differentiate, because this is how things work, and I think Huber is able to talk to you about it way better than me. But it's like a screening process, which means that if you do have the results that they want, then they start looking at your profile. And I believe that if you were to submit this year in a university or a program where they say you have the option not to send, then you will have a lot of competition, and it will be very, very hard for you to have an interesting or original profile. And also, this might be hard for people for school, sorry, to eventually accept you. So yes, I think that in the long run, especially now for Cornell, it depends on the programs. For mine, I still have to submit the GRE. For some, you don't have to submit the GMAT or GRE, but people in school were really. I mean, I talked to many people who were in MBA programs, and I talked to a lot of consulting and career management in the university in Cornell, and they were very skeptical about the fact that people wouldn't send the GMAT and GRE. So I think it's still a very important part and very important component uh, of the files. And I think that if you were to work it well and have good results, then you might have even more chances than before, because in some programs it is considered as optional right now.
Yeah, yeah, we see that of course there are, we see Jeremy, a lot of changes. They even accept now a test called the EA, Executive Assessment Test, which was designed for EMBA students. It's a test that I worked on within SEAD like 10 years ago. And I was surprised to see that now this test has become somehow official, and it was just like an entry test for EMBA to look like we are asking for something, and we're somehow selective. And now it has become, and the test is not really demanding, I can tell you. Everybody can pass this test. And I had students accepted already to Columbia with the EA. So they were scoring like 550 on the GMAT. They took the EA, they got 162, which is still like 550, but it's considered a 700. I don't know how they convert that, and they could get Columbia that way. So there's a lot of unfairness, I would say, regarding that. And as you know, I'm someone, I'm French, as you know, so I went into the French chronicle system with normal sup, with agrégation. So of course, I believe that selectivity is important because it has to do with fairness. And basically, when the system becomes completely obsolete or impossible to beat, there's an issue in that. Huh? Okay, so I believe in a rigorous selection process for fairness. Otherwise, things are not fair. So we're going to stop soon. Basically, the reason, and I will ask you a question, of course, your feedback, but we decided to organize this seminar. So I see that we have far fewer attendees than yesterday. Yesterday we were close to 40, 50. So there's less interest for US programs. Even though, so of course, the demand for US program is difficult for us to structure, because basically we have people, a lot of the students that we have studying in the US, it's more mainly for master in finance. So we have a lot of interest for master in finance from UCLA, from Berkeley, from Columbia, and from MIT. Okay. Also, some interest for the masters in data science, especially for the one from MIT. Okay, and very less for GMIM. And of course, I find it's a bit stupid. Okay. For instance, you see, Jeremy, I have a lot of students who have already spent the first 22 years of their life in France with probably 1 year of exchange program somewhere. And I find that it would make a lot of sense for them to study abroad. That's why I was very surprised when Mansour contacted me, because I saw that he had an MIM from Duke, okay, which is very rare. So he was an ODT, Mansour. I said, wow. So people go there, and I know that Duke Fuqua is an outstanding school. So I was glad to see that there's an interest, okay. And of course, there's probably a lot to build, okay. Strangely enough, you see, Jeremy was close to the University of Notre Dame today, and they didn't come, thinking that probably all Europe there's no point. It's stupid because we have also a lot of Indian students, and it's true that there's a lot to do. There's a word that we call evangelization. So we need to evangelize to show that maybe completing an MBA in America would make sense, and I'm sure that Mansour got a lot from this program. So basically, Mansour, if you could give like 3 pieces of advice to someone who wants to apply for a master's in the US, so we'll decided to be a bit different. So what would be the 3 pieces of advice that you give to a potential applicant for US master? Are you with us, Mansour?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So the first very important thing, in my opinion, is to present your profile in a very in a manner that will give you competitive advantage to others. If I give you my example, the fact that I was born in Paris but grew up in Senegal and then did my studies in Switzerland gave me a unique profile that I tried to present at best in my essays, and that gave me really this competitive advantage to others. The second point is that it's very important to understand why you're doing that master's. I mean, just doing it for the name is not what they really expect. They want people that know what they want and where they go, and know exactly what the program could provide to them in order to achieve their objectives. And third is that, as I said, the alumni network is very important. And what they are looking for are people that can help the school to continue to grow and continue to be prestigious in the long term by having big ambitions. And what is very important is to show what you can bring for the school during your year at the school, but also after when you leave the school. And I think those three are key points in order to be able to get accepted.
Yes, I would say you're right,
Also, the yacht is
Mansour.
ready to go now.
After that is Jeremy. We'll finish in 5-10 minutes. Don't worry, because so basically, I say that it's interesting because it's true that, for instance, when you're European, and same thing when you're Indian, probably, is that for you a business school is a business school. But it's true that in America, each school has its identity. You agree, Jeremy? Huh? When you go to Cornell, when you go to Duke, when you go to Columbia, when you go to Michigan. It's very funny because I give you an example. When I was at Harvard one day, I had many friends who are sport athletes, and one was at Michigan Ross, and he gave me a lot of T-shirts, from Michigan Ross, and I was very happy. And then I went to visit other friends, I don't know, in Columbus, Ohio, and they say, look, you're going to have many problems because you cannot support Michigan when you're in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so basically, I would say that universities are really important in the US. It's probably, I don't know, I've never been to Ithaca, but probably the biggest job employers in Ithaca is Cornell. Okay, so university are big things because university is more than what it is in India or in Europe. University is research center, it's a center of excellence, it's a big business. Also, universities promote sport. College sport is a big thing in America. When for instance, a football team, I'm talking of college football teams play, you know that they have 2 to 3 times more spectators than the Real Madrid. Okay, the Real Madrid is probably the best, or the Bayern München, some of the best football team in the world, and the football, soccer is the most popular sport in the world. So it's a big thing. So first, yes, you have to understand that you're applying somewhere, and you have to say, when I read my essay, I cannot cut and paste my Cornell essay from my Duke essay. Okay, of course, in terms of project, in terms of who I am, yes, but in terms of what I'm looking for, they really pay attention. Okay, so you're going to see that soon we'll start a series of booklets where we explain the specificity of each program. And second of all, what is also very important, you have to show how you can contribute before, during, and after. Okay, so they are really looking for people who can contribute. You see, for instance, I'm sure, Mansour, that nobody calls you, nobody from HEC Lausanne calls you to ask you what HEC Lausanne is about, because they know that being an HEC Lausanne Switzerland graduate, it's very unlikely that you give them any information on the school. Okay. But now, of course, when you're Duke or when you're Cornell graduate, you're going to be contacted by people who want to apply to the school, by people who are recent graduate, and will ask you for question on the school, question on help to find a job, whatever, on financial
Exactly.
help. Yeah, that's something. So basically, your contribution, and basically they want to see if you understand what the school, the specificity of the school. So when you apply to the school, you have to understand that. And you have to see that, of course, we come from Europe, so Europe is small, but of course, you have to see America is big. So between, of course, Berkeley, MIT, Chicago, and University of Miami, there's a big difference. It's a different country already. You see, for instance, just from the votes, you had recent election, you see that it's very different from one state to the other state. So that's probably, Jeremy, you were right to say that, Mansour, to say the familiarity and your contribution. Is there something else that can help differentiate and write a winning application and have a winning profile, Jeremy?
Yes. So first, I think I would just mention the fact that what you said is very, very true and very specific to the U.S. And this can be seen from the endowment. For instance, when you check on Harvard endowment, we're talking about $40 billion per year, which is insane. When you check out on the best engineering school in France, which is Polytechnique, the endowment is $400 million per year, which means that there is a huge difference first in terms of diversity, which meaning the fact that if you go to a school, say Harvard, then what's really important and what's really interesting in the American culture is the fact that you're saying that you're in Harvard and not even mentioning your major or minor degrees. So now for differentiating part, I think both you and Mansour talked about the most important factors in which we can differentiate to go to the US. I do believe that having to have either, as Mansour, the fact that you do have an original and a unique life in terms of academics and in terms of background. The fact that he was born in a country, then studied in one, and then moved to the other one is a huge plus. But when you don't have this chance or this situation, I think that regarding to where you're applying and to which degree you're applying, there are some benefits. So I think that if you're applying to a quantitative master's, having to expose research, extra, either research experience or research extracurricular activities is a huge plus. And I think this is something we should mention in our essays. And if you're targeting more of a business matter, I think that they love seeing that you're willing to take action, meaning the fact that if you've started a small business or a small startup while in India, while in Europe, while your country of origin, it is a huge plus mentioning that and explaining either for the interviews or the essays, or even when you'll be in the US and have the ability to talk with teachers and other students. This is a huge, huge plus because they admire the fact that you take the courage and the boldness of starting your own venture. Either way, even if it failed or if it succeeded. So I think this is really important. And although there are many people who aren't entrepreneurial in their mindset because they're more good into working into big offices or startups and working for somebody, I think this is something pretty interesting to mention. Or the fact that you're working on group projects and really put a real emphasis on that. Even though it's not something that you're considering to be really important, everything you're doing as a group project and the ways you help people or the projects really evolve. If it's a school thing, if it's something you did 5 years ago, I think you have a lot of things to extract from this, and they really like it. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. Probably Karishma, you want to have the last word, inverted comma. So of course, Jeremy, it's always very nice, and Mansour, it's always very nice. So basically, Mansour, you can explain maybe that to make, because we'll have a seminar on US on European MBAs next week. At how we met, we didn't meet through the preparation to the Duke application, but we went for the preparation to the INSEAD application. So to say that after the MIM, there is still the MBA. So if you want to finalize with that, maybe before we carry out the final word, yeah.
Yes, indeed. So I met Hubert this summer because Hubert helped me very well into my application for INSEAD. So my objective after my 7 years of consulting was to get an MBA, to get again a new perspective, and now in a different school, not in the US, but more in INSEAD, which is an international MBA between France and Singapore. And I believe the MEM is really an alternative to the masters in Europe, not an alternative to the MBA. The MEM is the masters in the US is very interesting to do before starting to work, to get a good network and a good opportunity to learn new methodologies. But doing an MBA a few years after is also very interesting, which I'm going to do starting in INSEAD in January. And also I thank you, Hubert, again for helping me getting that MBA. And I would like also to take this opportunity to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share today with you. And please do not hesitate to share my email with the participants and to contact me if you have any questions.
Yeah. And what we can do more like Mansour will organize, we'll make an interview of you as we did with Jeremy, okay? Let people know
Okay.
about your story, and then we'll organize a webinar with you because we don't want you to be bothered. It doesn't make sense. But of course, if I have a student from Senegal, I already mentioned Fatoumata Tassi that you may know. I don't know if you know Fatoumata Tassi. She went to INSEAD, so I said that they will put you in contact together. She
Yeah.
finished INSEAD like 2-3 years ago. Voilà. And so what is interesting is that what I see is that you both entrepreneurs. I think that Jeremy, I think that he will be one soon. Yourself, you're going to run the family business. So it's a good thing that you want to get the best possible education. So you'll have one MBA, one master, one bachelor. You yourself, Jeremy, one bachelor and one master. And probably I'm sure that in a couple of years you will visit me for an MBA. There's a good chance. So it's what I like, what I really appreciate is that you spend so much time, so much effort in your education when you could have done it without, okay? It shows how important education is. So I would like to say that some people here may say, oh, I don't know if it's important to go into further studies, but I want to say that both Mansour, he could already run family business, and Jeremy, after his master, he could run his business already, probably consulting in data science, but they still want to go ahead, they would still want to learn, and they are right because they want to learn from their professors, they want to learn from others, they want to learn from the university, they want to learn from the interaction that they will have with consultants, with professors, with all people involved on the campus, and you're right. What I've seen so far, because we have invited a lot of our alumni, the things that they are doing pretty well in life. It's very impressive. We don't have one who is over 35 years old who is not a millionaire. So it's not common in France or in Europe to have reached this level. So it shows that really the MBA at the age. And what I've noticed, is that going to America makes a difference. Okay, for sure. So you, Mansour, you have reasons why you want to be in Europe, and at the same time you already studied in America because you want to run the family business. You, Jeremy, other reasons, but what I see is that it's always the same. When you achieve in America, you achieve much more. What you gain from your achievements is incomparable to what you can get in Europe. Okay, because still success is rewarded. Okay, and it's a country where there is money. Okay. So I wanted to thank you a lot. So Karishma, you want to finish with something? Today you have been, there were not many questions, so you have not been, and of course I know Jeremy and Mansour well because they were my son not long time ago. Mansour got inside like 1 month ago, I believe. So I know them well. So of course we have a lot to say when they come. Last word for you, Karishma?
So yeah, I don't have much to say. We had a talk, Jeremy and I, a few weeks back, I guess. So I hope I'll see you for another webinar soon, where with all the other students. For now, I'd like to thank both you and Mansoor. Mansoor, thank you if you're here. And I hope to keep in touch with both of you, and then maybe have some more interviews and webinars with you. Maybe contact you for more questions and student questions.
Yeah. And what
So
happens? What I'm launching a new series, Mansour and
Yes.
Jeremy. So I'm not. I don't want to put too much pressure on you. But now the next step will be in 4 or 5 years time, maybe when you have achieved something big. So you'll be interviewed as an achiever. So for instance, we're going to interview Jeremy Rosselli, who is the CEO of N26 in France and Benelux. We're going to interview We're going to interview Edouard Bouygues, who is the next to be CEO of Bouygues Telecom. We're going to interview Nicolas Houzet, who is the general manager of Galeries Lafayette. We're going to interview, yes, I made the list. So we have many guys. Julien Hakoun, who is a developer now in America and who is doing extremely well. He's a Chicago graduate. He was with us last week. So what is interesting now, we have a small history, okay, but we already have like people who have achieved, who have incredible achievements. So who manage companies who are between 100 to 5 billion euros, so which is not bad. So we have already within our alumni network, and I believe it's very important that people say that yes, within a frame of 5 to 10 years, I can already be after my MBA or my master at a quite high level. Okay, and what I see is that it goes very fast. Huh? So if you achieve at the age of 35, 40, you'll be already at a big position. Okay, Julien Hakoun is what, 33, 34 probably. He's already a developer, and his company makes over 100 million euros. Okay, income. So the guy is 34, and he went to Chicago. When he went to Chicago, he was my youngest student. He went there when he was 23, and he did an MBA there. Okay. So now the next step, Jeremy and Mansour, is the 1 billion euro company. Okay. I don't want to see you before that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Okay.